Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. I got a question for y'all. If a parent sets a bad example for their children, or for the grandparents or whatever, if you set a bad example for them, even if you have good intentions, is it your fault when the child gets in trouble? Whose fault is it? Is the parent always to blame? Is some responsibility placed on the child? Is all the responsibility placed on the child, right? Now, this story that I'm about to tell y'all is about one of my old Cellies, a brother named Tony. I'm going to give him that name. It's not, his real name. But Tony, he hated his father. Hated him with a passion, right? And when he first moved into the city, let me back up. Tony, when he was 10 years old, his pops got in some trouble, got locked up. Selling a little dope, got locked up. They put him in the penitentiary. They gave him, I think it was about 10 or 11 years, 12 years. You got 12 years, right? With parole, of course. And during that time, Tony, his mom would take him to see his dad and all of the different things that you do and visit and all of these different types of things. And during that time, Tony's pops was hustling, getting money, sending it home so that his wife would be straight, that Tony would be straight. He was doing all of these different types of things, right? And sometimes, every now and then, Tony would see, his pops getting that bag. And he would ask questions and say this and say that, and inquire about it, whatever. And his pops would tell him some old lie, fantastic lie, like it ain't nothing, don't worry about that. I'm here to pay for your schooling and your basketball, AAU, and all of this different type of stuff, right? But as a child, Tony didn't really understand that anyway. He was just curious and asking questions. You know how kids do. So, by the time Tony's father came up for parole, things had changed over the years. Tony had grown up. And during the time that he was growing up without his father, he became a smooth manipulator, a liar. Just lying about anything. He would just lie about the stuff, right? And also, during that time, he was really missing his pops. I'm talking about he was really asking to see him, all of these different types of things, but he could never get the attention that he wanted from his pops. And his pops was trying to reach him and all this and that and all these different types of things. And he always thought, well, when I get out, I'll be able to take care of it. You know what I mean? But by the time he got out, Tony was like 17, 18 years old. And those hard lessons that he learned in life without his father, they were baked in. He had learned how to maneuver life without his father, but part of that maneuvering was built around him lying to people, manipulating people, using people. All of that kind of stuff counted. Tony he didn't cut no corners when it came to that. He would lie about whatever he needed to lie about to get whatever it was that he wanted. Period. One time, his father, when he was still in the penitentiary, sent him some money home. So that he could go play some AAU basketball. His mom, she's with it and all this and that, want him to go play. And they had a chaperone, but his mom couldn't go. But they had a chaperone that was going to go. So his mom talked to the chaperone, got everything lined up, everything was straight. She was supposed to, pick him up and all this and that. And the parent that picked him up said everything was going to be fine and so on and so forth. Right? But what it turns out was that this parent was on shice too. Tony had promised her some money to tell this lie, to get his mom to agree to let her pick him up so he could go kick it with some of his friends. He's a teenager at this time. And it worked. Now his mom don't know that she's been lied to. She don't know that. She finds this out later. In fact, years later. And she's upset about it. So she started to examine all the different things that had happened, with Tony, and she's starting to wonder, what else have you lied about? If you lied about this, good gracious, what haven't you lied about? So Time goes on, y'all. Time goes on. And Tony has learned how to manipulate everybody. Now, Tony's father is about to get out. He makes parole. Right? But when he made parole, like 2 weeks before he was on his way home, Tony catches a case. He catches a case. A burglary case, right? Burglary. And Tony's mom is shocked. His dad is shocked. His AAU coach, everybody is shocked because Tony presented as a good kid. He presented as a good kid. He wasn't out there like it. Well, it turns out that he was out there like it. All the money that he was being sent by his dad, he hustling and buying dope, but he ain't a good dope seller, so he got to steal. Breaking into people's houses and all this and that. And they got caught. Got caught red-handed. Ain't no if and a but about it. There ain't no way around it. He's going to the penitentiary, right? So now, when his dad is on his way out, he's on his way in. He's on his way in. And when he gets locked up, he has a hard time. He gets to like orientation. That's like when you first come in, the penitentiary that you come into. He gets there and he gets beat up. I'm talking about beat up. You get hands put on him real bad. Real bad. And they have to put him in protective custody. He don't know nothing about that, but they put him in protective custody. And then they end up reclassing him. And that's how he got sent to where I was at and ended up my Cellie. But while he was in protective custody those 2 or 3 months, he's starting to develop this seething hatred towards the people that he feel are to blame for him being in prison. And the main person that he says is to blame is his dad. He said if his daddy wouldn't have left him, if his daddy wouldn't have abandoned him, he wouldn't be in prison. He wouldn't be in prison. Now, he wasn't saying none of these things when he was out there accepting the money from his dad and lying about it, tricking his mom, lying about it, doing all these different types of things. He wasn't saying that he needed his dad in his life. He wasn't saying that he missed his dad. He wasn't saying any of those things. But as soon as he got put in the thick of things, then he started saying it. He started saying it. And I understand he was hurt, he was mad, and all these different types of things. So he's trying to figure out why this stuff happened to him. And the only person that he can blame is his dad. If he would have been there, Tony believes none of this would have happened. He would have looked out for him. Things would have been different. Life would have been different. And I could relate to what he was saying, not just because of me and my son, but because of me and my father. My father was locked up for much of my young years, but I never really looked at my pops as the reason as the reason that I ended up doing all of this nonsense and ended up in prison. Excuse me. I got a cold, y'all. But I could understand where he was coming from because of my relationship with my sons, Boo and Montrez. I could totally relate, because sometimes they would ask, Daddy, when you coming home? I could feel it was different. But see, because I had a support system, a structure. Both my grandparents were there for me. All aunties, uncles, cousins, everybody was there for us, and I was still doing stupid stuff. Just because I wanted to. You feel what I'm saying? I can look back, in hindsight is 2020. I can look back and say, maybe if my father wouldn't have been there, I wouldn't have been doing it because he wasn't going to allow it. You see what I'm saying? Not to say that everybody else in my life was allowing me to do this because I was lying and manipulating and using and doing all these different types of things. Not to say that they would have been allowing it. It's just that I guess if I wanted to stretch it, I could say that, yeah, maybe if Pops would have been there, it wouldn't have been like that because he would have been on me. I could say that, okay? But is it true? Would that have made a difference? I want to believe it would have. But see, when you talk about like the relationship that I had with my sons, they gave a different story. It was hard. They had a support system, but they said it was hard. It's not to blame anybody. We're not going to even do that. It's not about that. But they really wanted me there. See, my daddy wasn't there, you know what I'm saying, in that way. But my grandparents made us go visit him and all this and that. And we learned about our dad like that. And it was still distant, but I love Pops. I love Pops. And we had a great relationship when he got out and until I got locked up, and still had a great relationship all the way up to the day that he passed away. And I miss him dearly. And I like to believe that it was the same for Montrez and Boo with me. But they wanted me there. They needed me there, and I wanted to be there, but I had abandoned them with my foolishness, let's say. So I totally understood where Tony was coming from when he was saying that, but I didn't necessarily agree with him, y'all. See, that's where I want to break this thing down for you. So Tony is in the penitentiary. He's my Cellie, right? And his pops is writing him every day, telling him, you know, and then back then, they didn't have it, you know, where you can get a visitation form online. You had to actually send the visitation form to your family, right? You see what I'm saying? So his pops was writing him and telling him all the time, send me a visitation form, son, so I can get on your list, come see you, you know, and all these different types of things. Tony never would send him a visitation form. We'll be in the cell together, and we'll be talking, and he'll just start talking. I'm laying on the bottom bunk, he's sitting on the top bunk, and he was like, man, I ain't sending that sucker nothing. Now keep in mind, at this particular time, I hadn't told him much about me. See, I don't talk a lot like that to people, you know what I'm saying? I hadn't told him about Montrez and Boo and me being a parent and all this and that, and I had abandoned my kids. He didn't know any of that. He just in there mouthing off, you know what I'm saying, just like everything's straight. Everything is straight. And he's saying all these disrespectful things about his pops, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him, and I tell him, I said, Cellie, your daddy was locked up, man. What was he supposed to be able to do other than what he did? Because he had told me how his pops was sending money home, boatloads of money, paying for anything and everything that he wanted. He was just absent. And Tony, he'll look at me and say, Joe T, you don't even understand what I'm talking about, man. He wasn't there. I needed him there. And I asked him, I said, Tony, when did you get it in your head that by him not being there, that messed your whole life up? I said, who decided to lie to their parents and all? I'm being rhetorical when I was asking him. You decided to do all of these different types of things. You decided to run up in them folks' house, burglarize in them folks' house, and got caught when you were supposed to have been at a basketball game. That you had lied to your mama about, talking about you was going to the game, and she thought you was at the game because she's got to work, you know what I'm saying, on second shift. So she thinking you out at a game being chaperoned by one of your friends' parents, but you out stealing. You and him out stealing, and you get caught. I said, so when did you get it in your head that that's your daddy's fault? How did that become your daddy's fault? So he sat there and he looked at me, and he said, just like I thought he said, Joe T, if he would have been there, I wouldn't have been in here. I said, Tony, I ain't even going to say that's not true, but what I am going to say, at this point, man, you can't blame Pops. You just can't. You think you justified in there. You can't blame him. That man did everything he knew to do under the circumstances. And see, I'm going to give y'all something else y'all need to understand. I want y'all to really absorb what I'm about to say. See, a lot of people, even the kids, have the benefit of hindsight. They look back and they think about, you know, what and how they were raised and all the mistakes that their parents have made and the bad decisions that they think their parents made in the name of doing the right thing and all this and how it affected them and all these different types of things, and all of that is true. Every bit of that is true. But see, when you have the benefit of hindsight, you can break stuff down. But see, in the moment, when a parent is in the moment, or even Tony, when he was in the moment, he thought what he was doing was going to benefit. I ain't say right or wrong. Y'all hear what I said. He thought it was going to benefit him. Just like Tony's daddy thought what he was doing was going to benefit Tony and his mom by sending dope home. He thought it was going to benefit Tony and his mom by being out in the streets and selling dope until he got caught and got taken away from him. He thought it was going to benefit. But when you got the benefit of hindsight and you look back, you be like, man, bro, that was stupid. See, a lot of times we don't learn from the people that come before us. Period. Let me give you another example on that. Case in point. Listen. You got a whole record of people out there, and my pastor told me this one day. He said, you got a whole record of people out there that selling dope and all this and that. A whole history on them, right? When has it ever turned out good? When has it turned out good? When has a dope dealer made it all the way? This ain't the movies, y'all. When has a dope dealer never been robbed, never been to jail, never been done any of these types of things? They wasn't the police anyway. You feel me? And even they have a hard time. The lifestyle don't end good, man. But we have this tendency to ignore the lessons that we can learn from somebody else's situation. We don't do that. We don't do that. But if we did that, our situations would be better. We wouldn't have to sit back and wonder. See, Tony didn't look at his father's situation and say, I'm not going to do anything that takes me away from my mama. He didn't do that. He didn't do that. Tony made the fatal mistake that a lot of people that have parents in prison makes, particularly the men. You listen to the chit-chat in the streets about who your daddy is and all this and that, and you get caught up in that because when they talking about you, they talking about the parent in glowing terms, like a lot of people in the streets that knew me talking about me like I was really somebody, and made Boo and Montrez think that if you want this glow, if you want to be somebody, you got to do like your daddy. And it landed them in the penitentiary. See, that's what a lot of us do. That's what a lot of us do. But see, now Tony, he hating his father, talking disrespectful about it. So I told him, I said, listen to me. Send your pops a visitation form, man. So he could come and explain himself to you. If that's what you want, you need answers. I'm trying to manipulate him, you know what I'm saying, for the greater good, right? He don't see what I'm doing. And he was like, yeah, you right, Joe T. He need to explain to me, which I don't believe his pop owe him any explanation, quite honestly. You know what I'm saying? It reminded me one time when I was in the cell, me and Boo was in the cell, and he was talking about I owed him this and owed him that. I told him I didn't owe him nothing. I didn't owe him nothing. I did everything I could. I made a bad decision. And I did everything I could to make it right. You can't make some things right. You can't make some things right, but I was not to blame for him coming to the penitentiary. But we're going to have a conversation about that. But here's the thing. A lot of people believe that the onus is always on the parent. Is that true? What do you think about that? Let me know what you think. Is the onus always on the parent, right? Does the child bear any responsibility in how they turn out? So check this out. This is what I hit Tony with. He was talking to me. His father got on his visitation list and he's on his way out to see him, right? So Tony's talking all this stuff about what he going to say to him, what he going to do, all this and that, right? So I asked him, I said, did you tell your pops about you lying about the AAU stuff and all that? Have you told him all the things that you did to counter the help that he was trying to provide you? And he said, no, Joe T, I ain't told him nothing. I said, so you didn't tell your pops that you've been lying the whole time about your situation and your circumstance? You didn't tell him nothing. He was like, nah. Now, of course he knew. Of course he knew. But Tony didn't want to own any responsibility. He wanted his daddy to wear it, but he didn't want to wear it. So I looked at him and I told him, I said, listen, when you go out there and talk to your pops, one thing you got to learn to understand is this, man. At the end of the day, you still accountable for what you did. You can't blame your pops for everything. You can't. You got to learn to accept responsibility for what you did. You want your daddy to be accountable, but you don't want to be accountable. You don't want to be accountable. And that's what a lot of us do. We want everybody around us to be accountable, but we don't want to hold ourselves accountable. Now, I get upset with Tony a little bit while he's talking because he's being real disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? And I guess he probably felt like he didn't have any reason to be respectful towards his pop. But I felt like anybody that would be that disrespectful towards his parent, you feel me? It's no way that he could respect me, so that's why I went hard on him. And if you want to know how this turns out, please tune into the next episode, right? Because it's going down, right? This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. Well, hold on. Before I even sign off, let me say this. Please, y'all, go and answer the question of the day to this episode, right? And you answer that question of the day, and you have a chance at the end of the week. If you answer all the questions correctly, you have a chance at the end of the week to get your $50 sent to you, right? By my producer. You feel what I'm saying? So y'all do that, right? Stay tuned. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.